And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Lisa Everhart, who woke up in a grave during her near-death experience, which we're going to learn about and more. Lisa, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
Lisa, if you don't mind, let's start on the day that you died and go from there.
So the day was May 24th of 2020, and I had taken my own life with the consumption of many pills. A little backstory on who I was leading up to this point. I was very ill. My liver was failing. I had kidney disease. I was a very depressed person. I had alcoholism, drug abuse. I came from a very shaky childhood, and I didn't know how to really cope with what life was and how to function within it. I took my own life, and after that, I remember waking up a few different times in my experience. And the first one was I was floating above my body and I could see me dead in my bed. And when I came to realization that I was no longer in my body, that I was above it because I was looking at it, I started to be confused. And I remember being carried out in a body bag and being put into an ambulance. And that was the end. That's all I remember from that part. I also then remember waking up in a grave where dirt is coming off of me. There's no body, so it was just, I was seeing dirt in front of me, and I was seeing fragments of skull all around me. And I lifted up and I'm floating. So I lifted up and I started to move, and there was 3 crosses. There was one in front of me, directly in front of where I was lifting from, one to my left and one to my right. And I was outside, and it was all green, this beautiful green, and then these 2 trees. And I felt called to try and go up this tree. I don't know why, but I did, and I was unable to go up the tree. And so I went over to the other tree, and I tried to go up this tree, and I was able to. And when I went up the tree, it transformed into kind of like a tree house of some sort. And there was a television inside this tree house. And on the television were several different screens. And I suddenly knew that every single screen was a story of my life. And I knew that every version of me, that it was me. Some looked like me, some didn't, but I knew it was all me. And on the screen, I focused in, and there was a version of me in my bed, dead, without life in me, laying on my bed. Next to it was me in a hospital bed, hooked up to all different machines. And as I put my force forward in a forward motion, I became this rainbow vortex, and I was sucked in to this screen. And that was the first time that I woke up, and I heard in the hospital, "Do you know why you're here? Do you know why you're here? What is your name? Do you know why you're here?" And then I fell back under. And as I fell back under, I came out of my body, but this time I was coming out of my body and I could see that I was in a hospital bed hooked to machines. And once I fully left my body, I had a little tablet, a small one, and then there was another screen in front of me. And the larger screen was hooked to me through a silver cord. And on both these screens were codings, different shapes, different numbers, and they were just consistently going down the screens. And as I rose out of this bed and I went forward, I was in a brick building. It was no longer the hospital. It was a brick building that surrounded me, and there was hallways. And so I started to go down the hallway and out the sliding glass door, but I went through it. I didn't have to open it. So I went through it, and I was back outside in this green area where the 2 trees were. And this time when I went out, I was looking all around, and I was just really trying to figure out what was happening, what was going on. I was still in a state of confusion. But this time I had a red glowing um, light of some sort. It was like an orb, and it was part of me. And so as I glided around, I came to a cave, and this cave had steps. And so I started to glide down into this cave. And inside this cave, while I'm entering, I'm seeing the skull, pieces of skull again everywhere underneath where I'm gliding. And so I go in further and further, and then everything around me, it looked like mirrors. It was just all these mirrors. And the first time I saw my reflection, I didn't know it was me. I was a fiery serpent. And as I was looking in all of these reflections and I was seeing myself, I morphed into this black tar. And I remember it being, it looked like it was sticky. That was my understanding of it. And as this black tar, I morphed into this black tar, there was a baby in an incubator floating in front of me. And it was almost like I was holding it, but because I had no body, it was just floating there. And I was just examining it and looking at it. And I woke back up in the hospital, and they're asking me, Lisa, do you know why you're here? And for the first time, I felt my senses within my body, and I felt pain, and I felt almost like in a fearful state because I had just realized what was going on and what had happened. Very briefly, I fell back under. And as I fell back under, I was once again in that brick building, and there was a tablet and the little phone again with the coding on it. And I remember it going all black, and there was nothing around me. I was just in this void, this space, and everything was black around me. And then I had a bright light white bright light come shine down on me, and I was on a bed. And I'm not sure if it was my bedroom bed because it did resemble it, but there was also differences. And so we shot up into the sky, broke through the universe. And as we're flying up, I'm seeing a white man or a guy in a white robe, and that is who's holding me. And we shot up into the sun. And as we went up, I could feel the moisture of the clouds on my face. I could feel the gravity, almost the pulling, the vortex. I could feel the speed that we're going. And we broke into the sun. I could feel the heat coming onto my face. And none of this time can I see my body though, but I am feeling all these sensations. And so we entered into the sun. And what I saw there was the most beautiful things that I've ever seen in my entire life. It doesn't even come close to the colors of this world. They're so much more bright and intense. There was marble everywhere. There's mountaintops, these cliffs. And on these cliffs, each mountaintop, they're all spread out and there's water flowing underneath. And they're emerald and marble floors and granite and silver and gold. And it's everywhere on all these mountaintops. And then these really tall building made of either crystal or glass because it's all see-through, all illuminated almost. And as we rose into this top building, there was two children sitting side by side, but their eyes are glazed over. And I remember what was playing on one screen was playing on the other child's screen, and what was playing on that screen was on the other one. That is what I took from that. And I was told, because there's no speaking there, it's all telepathically. You hear within yourself. There's no verbal communication. And I heard, this will all make sense in time. And I heard, you are a messenger. And from that moment, I shot back down and I woke up in the hospital.
Lisa, thank you for sharing your experience with us. Have you been able to verify that you were carried out of your house in a body bag?
So my boyfriend at the time, his story of what happened was very different. He said that they did carry me out in a sheet, and carried my body out because I was naked, and that I wasn't conscious when they came to get me, and that he was in like a frantic mode, and that is his understanding of what took place. So I was carried out in his story. His timeline does add up to the 12 hours of um, time that's just open. That I don't know what took place in those 12 hours. But something that also I just now remembered when I was seeing my lives on those screens, I knew in that moment that I had shifted a completely different timeline. That I knew, and I was seeing myself one way, and then I was seeing a different version of me. And when I entered into that, I really felt that I had truly shifted into a different reality of life for me. And why I want to bring that up is because after this experience, I was having dreams for about 2 to 3 months after. And in those dreams, which were so vividly real, I was actually seeing my family members mourning me and burying me and going to a funeral. And for quite some time, I was having these dreams until I fully stepped into this reality and really started making changes within my life, and being kind to myself and choosing better thoughts. And I started writing myself love notes. I just came back from that experience wanting to love myself. And as I did that, those dreams subsided. But I really believe that I shifted into a timeline where I did not die. And that is how I experienced a near death experience, is because there is, in my opinion, there is no death.
So are you saying that perhaps in another timeline or in another dimension, you did die?
Yes. And that's what it feels like. For those 2 to 3 months, I was really idling between my emotional entanglement to my past experience of life in another reality. And then I was experiencing my life here with my emotional entanglement to what I have going on in this now present moment. And it wasn't until I really started developing my skills of self-love, and to really examine what I'm believing to be true of myself, and letting go and forgiving things that have happened to me and forgiving myself, that within 3 to 4 months, my liver was restored, my kidneys were restored. The weight started coming off of me because I was very overweight. I woke up in the morning happy and eager to begin my day, where previous I was a very depressed person and I didn't even get out of bed. And I truly felt a transformation happen within my body. It's really like I stepped into a new character, because I had these new ideas and they would just pop into my mind, like write yourself love notes, say these affirmations. And this is before I ever read a self-development help book of any sort. I did come to find Neville Goddard's work about 2 to 3 years after my experience. And after coming to his work and reading everything that his lectures share, it really was like a security blanket of comfort, because it was adding up to what this man was saying that he experienced. And so I started searching on the internet other people who may have had these similar experiences, and there were so many, and it really gave me more comfort, and it gave me a hungerness to want to share and to become the best version of myself and to let my story help people. And that is my passion today, is to really just help people, because I've been at the very bottom of the barrel and I had these experiences and they changed my life. But not everyone has to go into death or the fear of death alone, because I really believe there's no death. I I know that a version of me died, and I know that I'm here breathing, living today. And I'm just so thankful for the experience, because I don't have a fear of death. And I'm eager to live my life to the fullest today.
When you saw the coding on the screen, was it something like the Matrix? And if so, do you feel like we live in some sort of simulation?
I'm so happy that you asked that question. And yes, 100% yes. I do believe that we are living in a simulated world. Why I think this is because of the screen that I was seeing. All these versions of me were on this screen. There was the tablet I was connected to. There was the larger screen I was connected to. And on both those screens were numbers. They were patterns of numbers in triangles and squares and circles. It was clearly a coding that was coming down these screens that were attached to me. And I was seeing everything all live simultaneously, all happening at once. And as I went forward, my body, my energy, because I didn't have body, my energy sucked into this screen, and I woke up in the hospital where previously I was not. So yes, I very much so believe that we are living in a simulated world, and that it is ran by our mind. What we believe to be true shall be true, and what we dwell on and what we really occupy our minds with is an experience. It becomes matter. It becomes an experience that we go through, all based off of our conscious state and our subconscious state. And all of this knowledge was downloaded into me over the years, and it just comes into me. How is that possible? Where is this information coming from? And I kid you not, when I say affirmations and I go into my mind's eye and I imagine scenes to happen, they happen. There's what else could really explain that? How can I have a thought, create a scene in my mind, and then experience it in my world? And that is why I believe that we do live in a simulated world.
At one point, you saw a baby. Do you think that was your child or you as a baby?
So when it comes to the infant in the incubator that I saw, I was left with an extreme amount of confusion for many, many, many years until I found Neville Goddard's work. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Neville Goddard's work, but I found a few of his lectures that are wonderful, and they really lined up to my experience. And they are called The Heavenly Vision, The Shaping of the Unbegotten, The Serpent Jesus Christ, The Conception, and the Resurrection. And in these lectures, he speaks about his experience of seeing a baby. And there's many other people who have had near-death experiences, and they also have seen a baby. So I really believe and align to Neville Goddard's description of what it is, of being reborn from above and conquering death and then re-entering into this world. And that is what it means to me. But to make your own understanding, I really highly recommend reading those lectures, because it really does bring clarity to what it is I experienced, and maybe some of you may have experienced.
Who was the guy in the robe?
I believe that it was Christ, the risen Christ. That's my interpretation of it. His eyes were this olive green, the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen in my life. And his hair was dark, golden, and curly. There was purple sash of some sort, like a tie to a robe, and he was just shiny. It wasn't like a human beauty. It was just something just so gorgeous that nothing in this world comes close to. And in my heart, I feel that that truly was Christ.
Do you feel then that the glass city that he took you to was heaven?
I really do. I believe that is where we all come from, and I believe that's where we're all born again from. We're born from heaven, after conquering death and re-entering back into the world to bring love, to share love, and to change our worlds through the use of our imagination, because that was something of a message that was given to me later down the road, like was said to me, that I would understand in time. And that is something that came to me, was that we're supposed to be using our imagination to help people to see things differently, to take into our mind's eye the way that we would like to experience another person or a situation, rather than allowing our senses to dictate what it is to be true.
And the two children that you saw, what sense did you make of them?
So at the time, I believed it to be my two sons, because I had two sons and they were about that age. Now I am not, I'm still a little confused about who it was, but I think what was more of a message to take from that was what was playing on one screen was playing on the other, and vice versa. I really took away from that is that what we believe to be true of ourselves is what we experience in our world. What's playing in here is playing out there. And I believe that it was a symbolic message that was given with that example.
You mentioned that you feel that you are a messenger. What is your message?
So I believe that the message is that imagination creates reality, and that we really need to look at what we are allowing our minds to think and what we're allowing ourselves to feel. When we let the senses of our body dictate the true reality, I believe that we are blinded to God's work that we are here to do. I really believe that when we're able to rise above what it is we're seeing or experiencing, and change our hearts and change our minds and create imaginal scenes within our mind, and really stay faithful and true to these scenes, they shall come into fruition. And I really believe that that is the message, is that imagination creates reality. And that is what I believe.
What do you think is the best way to keep your mind focused on positive things and have a positive imagination so you create a positive life?
Well, from experience, how I've applied this message in my life, I started with loving myself. I started with creating a feeling of worthiness by writing myself love notes, by writing affirmations on my mirror, saying them every morning, meditation, breath work. I was completing all of these activities on a daily, consistent basis. I wasn't just doing it halfway. I was going full out. And within a short period of time, my life really was changing. Not only my appearance, my health, but inside me, I was really starting to look at my world through the eyes of God. I was really starting to see the love everywhere, where before I was seeing the fear and I was seeing the sadness and the worry. I now when I go out into my world, I see God everywhere. God's everywhere, in everything and everyone. And the moment that if I slip back into that old thinking, I correct myself. It's a process, and it takes time and effort. But once you start going and you really start showing up for yourself, and you really start dedicating yourself and having faith, it becomes fun. It becomes fun to create situations to happen in your life, and to live life in abundance and fullness, because it's our birthright to be living in abundance. It truly is. And I took that away from that whole experience, is that I was going about my life all wrong. I was thinking that life was happening to me, not through me. And once I changed that perspective, I mean, everything just fell into place.
Can you give us some examples of some of the affirmations that you would tell yourself about loving yourself?
Yeah. So one of my affirmations was, and they're very simple: I am love. I am peace. I am joy. I am understanding. I have clarity. I love myself. I am beautiful. I am God's child. I am that I am. And that's still to this day written down my mirror in my bathroom. And I say these to myself every day. When it came to shifting my perspective of living in poverty to abundance, the affirmation that I used was, I have a lavish, steady, dependable income consistent with integrity and mutual benefit. I still use this one. I say this before rest every night. And every evening before going into sleep, I think of everyone in my world that may be going through a hardship or a hard time of some sort. And I take them into my mind and I have a conversation with them in my mind before falling into sleep. And I hear them telling me that their life is going amazing. I hear them telling me that they're healthy. I hear them telling me exactly what it is, what that would set them free if it were true. And when I started to do this, relationship dynamics in my life started changing, and people really started becoming that version that I was believing to be true of them. So many people.
After your experience, did you notice that you had any new abilities that could be considered psychic?
Yes. So for about the first two years after my experience, I was living in almost a consistent state of deja vu. I would know when about 2 to 3 minutes before something happened that it was going to happen. And this stopped about 3 years after my experience. So it happened on and off for the first year, then consistently for the second year, and then on and off again for the third year. And now my ability, when I go into a meditative state, I receive information. I receive these downloads, and I can do it instantly. Um, and it's information that I've never accumulated on the outside anywhere. And there's no other, I know that it's coming from a direct source. So this is an ability that I never had before, did I even think of doing, and it comes in a meditative state.
During your experience, you noted that there was a red glowing light that was part of you. Where was that in your body, and what was that?
There are a few things that really make total sense. I think that it was more of a symbolicness to it. As I did see myself as the fiery serpent when I was in the reflection, the cave of mirrors. And when I was outside of it, I saw the red glow. So I'm thinking that that was me, because I never saw my body. So all I ever saw was that red glow. And then when I was in the cave, I saw me to be a fiery serpent. So I'm thinking that that was me.
Do you fear death?
Definitely not. Definitely not. I do not at all. I know from my experience that I experienced death, and here I am today living life the fullest, filled with joy, happiness, great health, and it came from death. So, in my opinion, death is the beginning of life.
If you had a friend that was suffering over the loss of a loved one, what type of advice would you give?
I would let them know that they're somewhere. They're not gone. And to speak to them as though they are here, because they can hear you. They definitely can hear you. And why I say this is because, and this might sound strange, but for the first 2 to 3 months after my experience, I was hearing from my old reality the people who are still existing, because all states are eternal. And this wisdom was given to me later down the road, but all states are eternal. And within those first 2 to 3 months, I could hear my loved ones mourning me. I could hear them. I could hear them talking. So here I am living life, and they're there mourning me. So if I'm here living life and I'm hearing them, most definitely speak to your loved ones. Tell them how you're feeling. Tell them that you miss them. Tell them that you love them. They can hear you.
So are you saying that you were still connected to that other timeline, and that's how you were hearing them mourning you?
I really do believe that for the first 2, 3 months, the reason that I was still emotionally entangled so deeply to my old reality was because of the people who, the versions of life that are there mourning me. They were feeling sadness. I was feeling what they were feeling. I was connected still. And as they began to heal, I believe that's where the separation took place, as well as me being more focused on where it is I am now. And really, that was my main focus. I was no longer looking back, and I believe that they also had a period of time where they were mourning me and they were starting to feel better.
After watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that?
Yeah, most definitely.
What's the best way to contact you?
The best way to contact me is on Facebook. My name is Lisa Everhart, and I also have a private group called the Account for Your Ability, and I am the admin of that. So you can find me on either.
Is there anything else that you're working on that you want people to know about?
Yes, I am a spiritual life coach. I offer one-on-one coaching, and I also lead a group called Account for Your Ability. And I also have a subscription group under my name, Lisa Everhart. And I also run lives and group meets in there as well.
Lisa, before we finish up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Wherever you're at in your life today, really examine what you're believing to be true of yourself and of others. Really start to love yourself. And the more that you love yourself, you'll see the love reflected in others.
Lisa, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.